Hi guys, my name is Amish Tripathi and I'm the director of the Nehru Centre. The Nehru Centre is the cultural wing of the Indian High Commission in the UK, and we've been in existence for many decades, and we organize wonderful events at this very auditorium, which is in Mayfair in central London. Sadly, as you can see, the auditorium is empty. It has been empty since we were all put into lockdown due to the coronavirus pandemic. But what we Indians believe is that the other side of a crisis is an opportunity. And what we have done at the Nehru Centre is moved all our events online. So now if you attend our online events, every single seat is a VIP seat. Like you get a front row at our events. No trouble of parking, no trouble of traveling all the way. And practically all the programs that we would do, like literary discussions and dance performances, musical performances, we are doing them all on our online channels. You can register for our newsletter at our website nehrucentre.org.uk. You don't need to write them down, they will be displayed at the bottom of the screen. You can also come to our Facebook page, which is a verified page, the Nehru Centre. You can follow updates on all our events on Twitter as well, the Nehru Centre, that's also a verified account. Or you can come to our YouTube channel, again, the Nehru Centre. We are nothing if not consistent. I hope you do come to our online channels and enjoy the events that we are putting up for you. Thank you so much for all your love and support. Namaste, Jai Hind.
Namaste. My name is Amish Tripathi. I am the director of the Nehru Centre and the Minister of Culture at the Indian High Commission. I'm particularly delighted about this event that we are putting up for you guys, the conversation that we are putting up, because one of the key things, if you're a reader and you like reading someone's writing, you want them to write as often as possible. And my guest out here, she writes something every week. Her consistency is awe-inspiring. There's, of course, Twinkle Khanna, a brilliant writer. If we can bring her up on stage. Hi, Twinkle. How are you? Absolute
Very
pleasure.
good.
Pleasure to have you up on the Nehru Centre platform.
I'm thrilled to be here. It's amazing.
Thank you. Now, I'll have to go through the formalities. We are a Sarkari place, so we'll have some formalities before we start the conversation. So I'm going to read out your official introduction out here. Twinkle Khanna.
Oh my God.
Sorry?
Okay, there's an official introduction. I didn't know that.
There is.
Okay.
We're a Sarkari place. Twinkle Khanna is a well-known author, newspaper columnist, and film producer. Her book, Mrs. Funny Bones, which is also the name she uses as a columnist, sold over 200,000 copies, making her India's highest-selling female writer of 2015, a feat she repeated with her third book, Pajamas Are Forgiving. Forgive me. A widely read columnist, Khanna has established herself in the literary world for a satirical style of writing that drives a strong message back to her readers. She's won many accolades such as the Crossword Book Award, Vogue's Opinion Maker of the Year, India Today Woman Writer of the Year, and recently the National Film Award for her first production, Padman, based on the life of Arunachalam Murugan Thanam, with a strong focus on dispelling taboos around menstruation. She's also the founder and CEO of Tweak India, a digital media platform for the modern Indian woman. So, a consistent writer, award-winning writer, film producer, and a tech CEO.
Well, I'm not as prolific as you because I think you had how many books this year, Amish? Two? Yeah, well, so see. And my bio says that I'm India's best-selling writer, but it's a female writer. There are two men who consistently beat me, Chetan Bhagat and Amish Tripathi. I hate you.
I'm going to wait for the year when you beat me. I'm sure it's going to be the following year.
Not the following year, but someday I'll get there. Trust me.
But we've got all 4 of your books out here. Those of you who are watching us in the UK, Twinkle's books are available on Amazon UK as well. Do check them out. So Twinkle, if I might just jump in straight into the first question. And being slightly politically incorrect. You have a very different background for an author who actually writes so well. You write consistently every week. You pick normal everyday issues and you present them in such an engaging way that even out here where I don't get the newspaper, I go online to read your column. And the key thing of a good writer is not necessarily that you agree or disagree with them. Look, you can never agree with someone all the time. The key thing is you are engaged in wanting to hear that person's opinion, and because it's expressed so well. Take me through your background. How did you get into this?
So by unusual background, are you trying to say Bollywood? Because there's this. So there's this.
Okay, इस विषय पे मौन ही उचित है.
No, there's a stereotype, and stereotypes do exist because that's the game of averages. That people from performing arts probably or sort of from the film world are not, I would say, academic in many ways. But when I was growing up,
is there an unfair bias? Would you say?
I would say 80% of a bias is based on reality. So, but there are all sorts of people. My parents were readers, they always were. And my mom still is a very big reader. She reads books about spiritualism. She reads your books as well. And she's always giving me all these books, and because she thinks I need to probably develop even more. But, and then at about 10, I shifted to my grandmother's house. And at that point, I was living in a household with my aunts and uncles, and my uncle was a science fiction reader. So by 12 or 13, I was reading Asimov and Philip K. Dick and Arthur C. Clarke, and my world completely changed. So for me, books have always been an escape. They've always given me joy, less joy these days than they used to. But at that point of time, I think even while I was giving my exams, I was reading on the side. That is who I was. I have all my friends from boarding school who keep making these comments and nothing has changed. You always had your nose buried in a book. So what's different now? So, and the other thing I think is I've never considered my body my ally. My whole life, I'm very accident prone. I've broken every bone possible in my body. I have 40 ligament tears in my left leg. Luckily, I have only 10 in my right, which also meant that I spent a lot of time laid up in bed, just sitting there and being unable to do things. And I remember Frida Kahlo saying something along the lines of, who needs feet when you have wings to fly? And books were my wings. So that's how I got here.
What a wonderful way to put it. Yeah. I'll be honest, I hadn't heard that line. What a wonderful way to put it. Seriously. What are your favorite genres like? What do you like reading?
I read everything. I read across the board. But for me, my escape has always been science fiction. And now what happens is when I'm reading something else, I start dissecting it. I'm sure you do the same thing. You start, so you start looking at what is the exposition, what is the dialogue, what is the whole craft behind that, and the joy of actually reading disappears. But when I read science fiction, that is still inherently my escape, and it gives me, I feel like I'm in another world, and that's how I put myself to sleep every night. I read short speculative fiction stories every night, like 3, 4, 5, and I go to bed.
Wow. So Asimov would be your favorite. George Orwell, who else?
These days, in fact, I've been reading a lot of Asian science fiction writers who write short stories. So there's Shweta Narayan, and there was Usman Malik, Priya Sharma. So I'm really intrigued by how they are looking at science fiction and speculative fiction. And so that's pretty much my journey into this zone.
I feel like probing a bit further, like if you're actually ever going to get into speculative or science fiction. But first, How did you get into writing a column? Who convinced you? Who?
I used to write terrible poetry when I was a child. There were poetries about maggots, and my mother keeps saying they were about mangoes. But though I was notoriously a mango eater, where I would eat 24 mangoes in a day, and once she told me that apparently, she said I was eating mangoes in the shower as well. I don't believe her, but these are the apocryphal tales of my childhood. I would write these awful bits of poetry, and then I wrote half a book when I was in my early 20s. And then I didn't write anything, not for 20 years, nothing.
Okay.
And a friend who was shifting jobs from one newspaper to another, she decided she was going to ask some celebrities to write a column so that, she could prove to her new bosses that she was doing a fine job. And she asked me, and I remember telling her I haven't written anything for ages. And she said, you read so much, you can write. And I said, millions of people watch cricket, doesn't mean they can play. But she said, give it a shot. And I gave it a shot. And I realized that I had so much to say. And it began like that. And it's been almost, I think, 9 years. And I never stopped.
Yeah, and every book better than the previous one. Your columns came together into a novel. What was the reaction like of people who know you, your family, your friends, when you started writing the column?
So when I wrote my first book and I gave it to my mom, obviously. And I said, Mom, please read it. And I asked her after a week, so did you read it? She said, no. She kept it in the temple. So I think she was waiting for, somebody to read it and then she would read it. And I think a lot of my friends, close friends, said that one of my best friends, who's a Sardarni and quite candid, she said that I don't even want to read it. It's like hearing you speak all the time, and I've heard you my whole life. Another one said it's like your brain cut in half and served on a plate. So I guess I write in a very similar style to the way I speak, and I guess people can hear me inside their head. This exact tone. It was very favorable, which is why I continued writing and why I guess you have me here as well.
What's your process like? Because I can imagine writing a column every week because I've met so many columnists, who say that, look, after some time, you don't know what the hell am I going to pick up this week, because you start running out of subjects. You don't seem to run out of it. And you still
I run out of subjects. I run out of subjects too.
Okay.
So I think now, after a while, what happens after so many years, your beliefs are the same, your value system is the same, and you're sometimes often you're trying to say the same thing in a different way, in a fresh way, and persuade your reader again. And there are only that many ways that you can say those things. So I think that is a little bit of a stumbling block that I often come across. But I scan the news. I see what interests me. I will read lots of articles, news articles, periodicals about that. And in doing that somewhere, I discover what my own stance is, which usually is off balance because I'm so clumsy and definitely not always on everyone's right side. I do find it.
And how do you think, and how does something inspire you? What's your process like? And why would some subject just grab your attention and okay, I got to write about this, like when you took up the subject of Arunandan? So
I read about him. I was actually writing a completely different book. I was 10 chapters in, and I read about him, and I thought that this was a compelling story. It was also a story that urgently needed to be told because it was a problem. It was a widespread problem. I thought it was only an Indian problem, but I have realized over the last few years it's a global problem. It's not just in India. And I thought that this was such an interesting story that it could take a strong message and spread it far and wide in a way that people would want to receive this. Otherwise, if you give people a sermon, they're not interested. How many times can I tell everyone that, menstruation is absolutely normal. It's a part of our biology. You need to use pads. Pads should be cheaper. how many times are you going to listen to me? But if I package that with this marvelous story about a man who invented a sanitary pad and wore it himself and went riding around on a bicycle with, a little balloon of pig's blood to demonstrate the efficacy, you would be interested. And so I thought that this was something that really urgently needed to be told.
The subject itself is so utterly different. What's a process like when you pick up a subject that inspires you? So one of the things I always get intrigued by finding other writers. Some people have they make a story flow. Some people just go completely by instinct. What is your writing process like? How do you?
So I'll write out maybe a couple of chapters, 3-4 chapters, and then I have to plot it out by hand on paper. Otherwise, I can't do it on the laptop.
So you make a flow chart?
I make charts. Not exactly a flow chart, but I list it out by sort of timelines, dates, and especially with Arunachandan's, it was very important that I have all the dates correctly. The span between his invention and then what happened next, when he got married, when he came back. So I actually like to do a timestamp chart rather than just a flow chart. It helps me put it in perspective. Sometimes I draw. Sometimes I'll draw out a neighborhood and I will start, so then I can get those ideas of who this person is, with who all were living around him, what could have possibly happened, what it was like. And after that, I go back to then writing my chapters. And there are certain writers, it's like building, it's like making a building. So certain people want perfect floors, one after the other. And I'll probably have the exterior ready, and then I'll go up and down multiple times. What's your process? What do you do? I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I'm the interviewer out here, yeah.
No, it doesn't matter. Look, I warned you. You said you're going to be an easy interviewee because I had some people who say 5 lines. I have not done that to you. So now I'm asking you a question. Mr. Tripathi.
I am completely an instinctive writer. So I kid you not, I make no flowcharts. I make no plans. And my books, my story spread out over 3 books or 5 books. And there are... in fact, the 2 series are linked to each other, the Shiva trilogy and Ramchandra series. As you know, Ramchandra series is in a way a 1500-year prequel to the events of the Shiva trilogy. I've made no notes, nothing. It's just in my mind and I just go with instinct. So
and you don't get confused while plotting it or somewhere along the line.
I don't know, man. I'd written no fiction before Meluha. Absolutely nothing. 2010. I'd written absolutely nothing. So I genuinely believe it's a blessing. I have no idea where it comes from. So I just kind of follow. Hey, hello, I'm supposed to be the interviewer here. What's going on?
I have the ability to draw people.
So I'm gonna bring the spotlight back on you. Because the thing that intrigues me about you, there are writers who specialize in fiction. There are writers who specialize in non-fiction. Very few do both well and are able to sell both well. You can't tell me the process is exactly the same for both. How do you? Yeah. So how do you think differently for non-fiction? How do you think differently for fiction?
So both of them you have to pull from real life. But in fiction, you will make composite characters. So you will draw characteristics from 5 different people to form that one person. Whereas in non-fiction, you don't have to do that. That's one primary difference. The other thing I think is, like you say, writing is something that comes when you're writing, you're actually writing from your higher self. You're writing from a space where your values, your beliefs, your morals are very different from what's really going on in your life at that point of time. You are 2 people. You could have a death in your family, which would it would be devastating, but you're still noticing details. You're noticing that little, puja box that they've plugged in. You're noticing what's happening. You'll go home and take notes. It may seem heartless, but that is what writers do. We are vampires in that way. We suck everything around us without destroying it, luckily, and we put it into our work. So the basis of both are the same. You have to pull from real life. But again, you don't want people to be identified. I asked Ruskin Bond this, but he said, well, I just wait. I'm so old, I just wait till they die and then I write about them anyway. Which is great. So I'm also waiting for a lot of people to die.
But when you're writing, I mean, just building on what Ruskin Bond said, and when you're drawing from your own experiences, you essentially, every writer puts a bit of himself or herself, right, into the book. And there's always that, I mean, while writing, you can say, the hell with it, I don't care what people think, I will write for myself. But when the book gets released, and you essentially put a bit of yourself into it and put it out there. And, people react, some positively, some negatively. How do you handle that? How does that affect you? How does that affect your higher self? How does it affect your thinking?
I think it would really deeply affect me, if I had been rejected. That's a completely different thing. The other thing is I look at criticism in a very constructive manner. I want to see if there's any validity to what they're saying. And if there is, then I need to take that into consideration. Like, personally, when I look back at Pajamas Are Forgiving, I think I threw in too many metaphors and similes. And my editor did ask me, she said, please cut some of these. I cut 10,000 words, but really there are 10,000 more that shouldn't be in that book. So I look at each book objectively while I'm writing. And I think this is true for all writers. While you're writing, you have to have that arrogance that what you're saying is worth someone else's time. But when it's during the editing process that you have to be humble, to accept the edit, even if it feels like somebody's stabbing you in the eyeball, you just have to do that. So I think you need that sort of dual approach to writing.
This would have been Chiki's feedback as you, your editor.
Of course, yeah. I've been my editor on all these books.
Yeah, I've heard she's ruthless.
She is ruthless. I mean, she's not ruthless, I would say. I feel she's too kind. And she's the only one, and she says that I'm the only one who will spin back after an edit and give it to her in 24 hours, 48 hours. Then I'm in a frenzy. I'm working 12 hours a day, 18 hours a day, doesn't matter. By the end of a book, that's all I'm doing. I'm living in that world. And and the rest of my real world is just, it's just, I would say, fragmentary for me at that point of time.
Interesting. So do you kind of just cut off from life when you're writing?
Is there any other way of doing it? You tell me. It's a solitary profession. There is nothing else you can do. And I also believe that people who are very popular, who have a lot of friends, can't be writers because
Spot on.
Because then all these people will be calling you to come out with them, and then if you're going out with them, you're clearly not writing. So William Dalrymple, I think, is the only one who's very popular and can write really well as a person. And I think you have to be a bit of a misfit and oddball to really think that sitting at your desk alone and building up all these worlds is worth your time rather than just living in the one that exists. So
come on, you can't say you're a misfit now. Seriously?
I think I've been a misfit my whole life. I don't think I've even now found a place where I belong perfectly well. I haven't.
Really?
I don't think so. Do you think you belong perfectly well? Why are you then going back?
Don't turn the spotlight back on me.
No, why not?
Hey, hello. This is my platform. I am the interviewer.
I'm not the only one who needs to get sunburned in the spotlight. Come on.
No, but I think you're probably right. There is you need time. But one also, I mean, if I just flip that around a bit, what you mentioned earlier, that you also need experiences. We writers are like sponges, right? We are absorbing, almost every experience that we see, we are absorbing, and you never know where it'll go into a book. There was one friend I'd met 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and she was asking me, she had some banking trouble, some family issue. I noticed that whenever she would talk, she would just instinctively just hold her pendant, and if she would get troubled, and moment she calmed down, it would just come down. I don't know why it remained in the back of my head, and it came up front when I was writing Ravan. I showed Ravan doing that. I don't know why. So then, you as a writer, if you're saying you have to be a misfit, you have to be away from everyone, I get that. But you actually have to engage with a lot of people as well to get enough. So how do you find that balance? See, I caught you.
You find it. You have to find the balance. Exactly like you. I remember I was once talking to my brother-in-law, and he, he's a Sindhi, and he speaks in a very strange manner. So he said, I'm very happy. I feel about her the way that people feel when they bring Ganpati to their house. He spoke about his wife like that. So I promptly took the notes, and I threw it into one of my books. So we do that all the time. You have to engage, otherwise you don't have material. But you also have to be disengaged at the same time. If you're thinking about, that's a good line, I'm going to write that down, you're not really as engaged as somebody else, are you?
Good point. Now, how did your brother-in-law react when you did that?
I don't think they're bothered anymore. Sometimes, I made a mistake by saying brother-in-law, because I usually disguise them better than that. He's going to kill me
now. Okay, we are getting a lot of... we're getting some comments, someone saying, no, you're not a misfit at all. So
oh my God.
No one is perfect.
No one is perfect. Oh my God, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ashutosh.
I'm someone who's made a career out of my imperfections. So yeah, I know I'm not perfect.
So you're in London right now.
Yes.
What brings you here?
I came here because my son was just finishing up a course, and I'll be going home soon in a couple of weeks. And then I had a small injury, so I had to stay back for a bit. And now that I'm fine, all my limbs are kind of working, I'm going to be ready to go home.
For those who don't know, Twinkle had suffered. No, okay, I'm not supposed to speak. Okay. Sorry. So London.
She suffered from a bout of Alzheimer's, and so has Amish. Let's go on.
Okay, so London or Mumbai?
I think Mumbai. It's my home. It's not Mumbai for me. It's still Bombay though, because I'm a Bombay girl. I grew up, and so Mumbai is a city, and Bombay is my home. So that's what I am, Bombay girl.
And what do you like about cold London out here?
I actually enjoy the freedom.
I should point out, most of the audience is from the UK.
Okay, I enjoy the freedom of just walking endlessly. That's such a joy, because when we're back home, you can walk, but you will bump into either a pothole, a baba, or other animals on the road. So it's not as safe as walking here. But again, I'm missing home now. It's time to go back.
Okay. Let's have some, if there's some questions coming up, we'd be very happy to. Tara Singh says, wow, very nice and intellectual, comprehensive discussion. Hearty congratulations. I'm assuming that's for you, Twinkle. There was nothing intellectual in what I said.
No, it's all the questions I was asking you.
Okay, so Gurveer, someone has this question for you. Are you a self-taught writer, Twinkle ma'am? And I'm a self-taught painter. Hey, wonderful, Gurveer.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. Yes, but the one thing about being self-taught is you're always seeking that academic validation. So every time I have a break or I break something, I sit and I study. And I've just finished another course in writing. And honestly, you keep learning the more that you are out there and imbibing new sort of disciplines. So I think being self-taught is very important, but having a structural way of getting information is as important as well.
You don't need a course on writing, yeah? You write very well.
I wanted to do different things. I like doing. I learn something every year. So a couple of years I came to Central St. Martin's and I did a course in graphics and illustration. It has nothing to do with my work, but I like it, so I would do that. So I did a course in memoir writing. It was just interesting. It's an interesting way of breaking up the process. That's all.
I just shocked the brain a bit. And it's one of those theories, right, that you force the right brain to do something new every 6 months. It keeps the creative juices flowing.
Yeah, so all your neural connections are constantly developing, and I think that's very important.
Okay. There is a question, I don't know if you can read that, from Ashutosh Kumar.
Yes.
Does Aki work as a critic? I assume Aki means Akshay Kumar. So, sorry, I don't know the pet names, but...
No, he just tells me to remove certain things from my columns, and actually these days he's even given up on doing that.
I hope he's not watching this. Okay, Gurveer Singh Thaman has a question. When is your next book coming up, and is it fiction or non-fiction?
Well, it's fiction, and I'm writing, but you never know, because I've dropped books after writing 10, 12 chapters and then gone on to another one. So you can't really say it's over till it's done, right?
And who is your favorite author other than Amish? Hey, I'm not going to force that. Darshan, thank you very much. I'm not going to say
author other than Amish.
That question was not planted, I assure you.
That's your nephew. That's your nephew typing away. I would say Alice Munro's been a source of inspiration. Jhumpa Lahiri, Margaret Atwood, a lot of strong female writers as well.
You have good taste, you have good reading taste. Moni, okay, there's Sangeeta Datta. Not a question really, but wanted to tell Twinkle, I am her dad's greatest fan and a big fan of her writing. That's a compliment for you. Sangeeta is...
Thank you very much.
Is one of the most important, culture vultures in London. She organizes wonderful programs, and in fact, we have organized some in Nehru Centre as well. So,
lovely.
Thank you, Sangeeta, for that very high compliment. Suresh Kumar, what is it like to have famous parents, and you must have encountered pressure? Listen, if you don't want to answer any personal questions, very happy to drop these.
I'm all right with it. I think for a lot of people, having famous parents, they feel that they are in their shadow. With my parents, I always felt that I was protected in their shade. So I don't look at it in that manner.
Now that is a good writer. What a wonderful way to put it. You're not in the shadow, you're protected in the shade. You don't need a writing course, man. You're pretty good by yourself.
I like to learn things. Everyone's telling me this. Why are you doing a writing course? So now next time, I told you that when we were chatting, I want to do a course on scriptures. I want to do a philosophy course. I want to do something in psychology. The more you know, the better it is.
That is true.
That's my basic grouse against mortality. Do I have enough time to know everything that I want to know? That's the problem.
Okay, Sonali Sabu Chandak is asking, your favorite reads from 2020?
There's this wonderful book called Love and Other Thought Experiments. It was shortlisted for the Booker. It is, by the way, by an actress. So look, that stereotype about people from that part of the world not being able to...
It's broken and been thrown out of the window.
And I thought that was a wonderful, wonderful book. I think it's probably my favorite read of the year.
I have to admit, I haven't read it, but I will check it out.
Yeah, please get it. It's lovely. You'll enjoy it.
Well, there's a question from Ramanand Garge. What inspires you more to write? More travel experiences or day-to routine? And essentially, I guess what he's asking is, what inspires you more? Travel experiences or your day-to-day routine?
Both. So I think a lot of times, especially for my columns, if there are these hot topics in the country, I'll deliberately start asking my family members about it. I'll call up my sister who lives in Delhi, so she has this other perspective. And she knows that I'm going to make fun of her in the column, but she, graciously agrees anyway. And if I really want life experiences which are changing, then I need to get out of my routine. I have to come out from a protective bubble and go out there and probably get lost completely and then discover something new.
Fascinating. Moni Sunil has a question. Have you picked up any great books from London?
Have I picked up
any Waterstones?
Actually, I ordered things online. So I read John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men again. So no, actually not again, for the first time, sorry, because I missed that one. And so that was good. Again, men authors, and they have a way. There were no female parts in that book. Why?
Okay, I am going to quietly hide under the table. Okay, Inika Chakravarti, do you write poetry?
I do write poetry, but I don't think anybody in the world wants to read my poetry, so I just keep it for myself. My editor once threw it out of my book, so yeah, it's not worth it. Trust me.
No, you should release a book on poetry. You never know; these things are actually caught on these days.
No, I am not impressed with my own poetry, so there's no point in publishing that.
Okay, you write in English or Hindi or what?
I write in English. I've written one poem in Hindi, which was even worse, so I don't think I'm going to try further.
Okay, there's a question from Sonali Chandak. Could you tell us about your writing ritual? Hey, this would be interesting. Yes. Your writing ritual.
I write early in the morning as soon as I wake up. And for
Usually
me,
what time? Around.
Well, if it's a normal day, it would be about 6:37. So my kids would leave for school by 7, and I'd be at my desk with a cup of coffee, and I would begin. I think that's the best time to write. By 4 o'clock, all my neurons shut down. They decide that they have nothing left to do, and they just want to, I guess, I don't know, float in space. But so about 2-3 hours every day, and if not possible, and if I'm in the midst of a book or if I'm finishing a book, then it's all day. But in the beginning, I think it's an hour, sometimes 2 hours, 3 hours, till you really get into the meat of that narrative.
Fascinating. But that's only the time. Is there any other ritual? Like everyone has something. Do you eat something? Do you have some favorite
I
kind
know
of
you eat
music?
cream
Or...
biscuits. You
damn,
eat
okay.
cream biscuits when you write. I know that.
This is not about me. I am
No,
the
but you
interviewer
eat
here.
cream
This is my stage. I'm the interviewer here.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. I know a lot about you. So, do you eat cream biscuits when you write? Is this true or is it a fable?
No, yes, I do. Sadly, it's true. So I put on a lot of weight normally when I'm writing. I've had cases at Litfest where readers come up to me with packets of cream biscuits. कि ये लो और जल्दी लिखो. But do you have any other rituals? Any music? Do you listen to music? Do you
No,
anything
I
which
can't.
kind of just triggers the
I
flow?
can't listen to any music. I mean, I'd be completely distracted. In fact, there are times when I plug in headphones and I listen to white noise. So, like the sound of a washing machine or rain or an AC to kind of cut away all the other external sounds. I drink a lot of coffee.
Okay.
At some point, I believed that I had a lucky laptop. That was my superstition. I thought this was the laptop that, worked for me. And I was going to fast for it every Monday for its long life. And then one day it was so bad that certain keys were not working and I was still trying. And then finally one day it just completely gave up. And I think it committed suicide. It was that fed up. And I got another laptop and I was writing in the same way. So it really wasn't the lucky laptop. And yeah, that was my superstition for a bit.
And it's fascinating. But you don't like any sound at all, I guess. If you're just even using white noise, so no one can disturb you. No one can come in to the room when you're writing. Do you like get agitated, angry if someone comes and disturbs you?
Yeah, that's what my children say. That when she's writing, she's snapping all the time. Stop it! Don't come here! Can't you see? So my daughter actually, when she was doing a homework and I came and I asked her something, and she said, "You have broken my chain of thought." Because she was imitating me.
And she's 8 years old.
She's 8, yeah. So
Okay, fascinating.
yeah.
Interesting. Okay, Darshan has a question again. Your favorite Indian movie of Rajesh sir?
Well,
I didn't know. Indian movie. I didn't know your father did non-Indian movies.
He didn't, but Anand was my favorite. I suppose Hathi Mere Saathi as well. Yeah.
Anand was my favorite as well. What a classic! Absolutely love it. Of course, one cries a bucket at the end.
Exactly.
But love the movie. Okay, Adityendra Singh Shaktawat has a most bizarre question. What positive aspects do you take from 2020? Adityendra, I love your positive thinking. I don't know what the answer is. Twinkle?
I think for me, it's been quite a revelation. I decided that I'm too much of a control freak and I could not control a pandemic or the outcome. but I'm not blaming myself. All these astrologers who were predicting various things could not predict a pandemic. So one thing, I'm not going to listen to astrologers anymore. That's my one positive outcome. And the other one is to actually go with the flow. I'm somebody who's I like making lists for everything. I make a list for what I want my schedule for the day, even when I don't have pressing appointments. So I think to sort of let go and relax a little bit and not be as driven is something that I've taken from this pandemic, because I didn't have a choice. Yeah.
I kid you not, I make lists for everything as well. So I'm a complete obsessive freak. Make lists for everything. And then I want a sense of momentum by the afternoon. I'm sure you feel that too, right? That I've ticked only half these items. What have I done all day types? You get that?
Yeah. And somehow you also feel that no matter what you've done, it's just not enough. And I'll turn around and I'll be like, but no, it's not enough. And I've really not done anything. And then I look at, my list, and I seem to have accomplished a lot. But yeah, it's one of those things. Like I said, we don't fit into the real world very well. These are not things normal people do.
Yeah. Okay, Lalit Sharma has an interesting question. What are your tips to upcoming writers, especially fiction writers?
But to read extensively, I would say that is the most basic thing, to read as much as you can, to fill your mind with so many words that you have no choice but to regurgitate them at some point, hopefully in a slightly more stylish manner than just regurgitate. And I think it's a lot of things. It's about constantly watching, observing people, things around you. It's it's being able to take your own experiences and mold it into something completely different that you can give your characters. It's about being candid, brutally honest within yourself, because you can't really give somebody else those attributes without tearing it out from yourself. And I think it's about empathy. It's the ability to walk in someone else's shoes and feel their pain and their joy, and sort of manage to transmit that to the reader.
Does that make life a little difficult? Do you feel emotions a lot more strongly as a writer than you did earlier? Does that make life a little more difficult?
I'm more aware of changes in intonation. I'm more aware of slight changes in expression. And though unfortunately being aware doesn't mean that you have self-control where you can avoid those confrontations. You still go ahead and bang your head against that wall, but you're more aware that, look, I'm heading for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Shashank Korikal has an interesting question. Hi, Twinkle. Sorry, I was a batchmate at NM. Do you remember, Shashank? I hope you do.
I don't, but then I can't even see a picture.
Okay, Shashank, next time just put a picture of yours.
Yeah.
So Shashank is asking, if not an actor or a writer, what alternative career would you have pursued?
I wanted to become a chartered accountant. I had applied for my CA entrance exam.
Wow.
And that's how I was studying in NM, right? So that's Narsi Munji College. Yeah. And
is it a little boring? I'm just asking.
I like numbers.
Okay. I was a banker, so I know it's boring.
Yeah, I'm sure. Maybe I would have realized that eventually, but in school, maths and accounts were my best subjects. It wasn't really English as much. Science also was something I was fascinated by. So yeah, that's what I wanted to do. I was in my SYBCom, and by then it became very necessary that I go out there and earn a livelihood. My mother was a single mother. She was sort of looking after a lot of us, her siblings, my grandparents, us. So that was, a sort of a monetary choice. And I have no regrets. It got me here. So that's pretty much it. But yeah, a CA. That was it.
Fascinating. I would have never predicted that answer, to be honest. Fascinating. Okay. Indu Barot has a question. Twinkle Ji, you have lived many forms in your life, like a housewife, a mother, wife, writer, producer. Which I guess she means role. Which role is the most pleasant and which is the most difficult of all these roles?
I think all of them have had their own potholes along the way. I don't think that any one of them, there's nothing in life that you can say is completely smooth. And what I really like is being able to juggle all of these. So then I think I have a sort of ADHD because I lose interest very quickly. So if I'm juggling all of these, then I'm interested in the whole process, in all of them. But if I had to just do one, I think I would have quit and gone into, the Himalayas and probably, I don't know, become a hermit. Something.
So actually, doing all these things draws you in even more. It doesn't kind of tire you out. That's very interesting.
No, it keeps me engaged because for me, my spiritualism is tied up with yoga. That is my spiritualism. That's where I am, and I meditate almost every day. And but I realized that when I was going in that avenue, it was a process that made me want to leave all these things. And then I had my daughter, and then I got grounded back into this daily, bustle of life.
Okay. Manjinder Kaur has a question. What are the important parameters of a good piece of writing? How do you judge that you've written it well?
You can answer this question and then I will. Please go ahead. This is a conversation between two writers. Unless you're going to pretend that you're on the Sarkari Naukri, but I'm not allowing you to do that. So please,
I am going to pretend. I'm a bureaucrat right now. Bureaucrats, don't answer.
Okay, I'll answer first and then you answer.
No, fine. Okay, but okay, the guest first, and then I'll answer. I promise I'll answer.
I think a good piece of writing is, first of all, a command over the language. That's very necessary. Susan Sontag wrote that a writer has to be four people: a nut, a moron, a stylist, and a critic. So you have to be a nut. That's the part that will come up with all these spontaneous ideas, right? I think you have to be a moron because I think dumb people think that they are smart. Smart people know that there's so much more that they don't know that they are dumb. So that I think, being a moron is very important to be a writer, and that's an oxymoron. So yeah, that bit of Then I think a stylist. So you basically have this unique voice within that is very important. Because that is your style and the way that you say things. And a critic, because you have to know what you're doing wrong. You have to rip your own work apart. You have to be objective about that. So according to me, those are the things that make for good writing. And now it's your turn.
Fascinating. Okay. You put it so well. Now I'm a little embarrassed of my answer. But look, the way I see it, to be honest, because I'm a completely instinctive writer, right? So I just go by my instinct. I mean, there are things that I'd evaluate, maybe a post facto analysis, where the book has been launched, why it succeeded, blah, 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 if it did. But when I'm writing and evaluating it by myself, or when I'm editing, I go completely by instinct. If it feels right to me, I don't care if 1 million people say don't do it. I don't care. I'm going to do it if it feels right to me. If it doesn't feel right to me, I don't care how many people tell me to do it. I will not do it. So I just go completely on instinct when it comes on writing. So there are times I've put in, some clues, some incidents which may not make sense within the narrative structure of that book, but somehow it connects into the sequel, or so I've just learned to just trust my instinct. So it's not as smooth an answer as yours was, but I'm being genuinely honest. I actually just go with my instinct.
Have you written? How many books have you written?
8 till now, and the 9th one is just about to come out in a month. Yeah.
But that's not instinct, is it? It's experience. So what is instinct? It's your subconscious taking all your experiences, putting it together, and making a connection there. It's experience. I don't have that much experience. I've only written 3 books. Maybe later I'll trust my instinct as well.
Damn, you speak well. You really know how to twist it around. But that is it's probably true. Yes. And essentially, what is instincts? Love, stuff that we learn over time. You're right. Stuff that we learn over time, and then goes into our subconscious and just comes out. The right brain, the instinctive brain. Fascinating way of looking at it. Okay, Darshini Joshi has a question for you. You are the daughter of the greatest actor that ever lived in India. How does your parents' success and their failures affect you?
they're my parents. I don't look at them as successful people or as failures. I think that to me they're just people. I know them in a different way, and I hope that I'm also doing that for my children. I would hate it if my child looked up to me as a success or a failure. So they're just people who love me unconditionally. I love them back, and that was it.
That's the greatest blessing in life. Yeah, just seeing your parents for who they are. Wonderful. Jagdeep Singh from Malaysia has a question for you. How many books do you read in a month? Jagdeep is from Malaysia, by the way. This program's reaching all over.
Yep. Well, there isn't a fixed number. Usually, I read maybe 2 or 3 books a month. I thought in the pandemic I would read a lot more, but I haven't. I just haven't been able to get that concentration and read as much as I would have assumed I would. I probably read maybe 5 or 6 books max in the entire period of time. So it just goes to show that your brain needs that outside external stimulation to really be active and engaged in even things which are solitary in nature.
Yeah, get completely pucked after some time just sitting alone. Madhukar Sharma has a question. Is it possible both of you can write jointly in the future? Okay. I don't know. I'm a very difficult guy to work with, Madhukar. An easy guy to interview with, but a very difficult guy to work with.
I would say the same thing. I think that what I like about writing is that there aren't any other moving parts. It's you at the most. It's your proof editor and your editor, and that's probably it. There aren't other people involved who can kind of. When I was doing interiors, that was a very big issue. There were so many other people who were involved in the work that you had to do that it was quite daunting.
Having said that, I'm a big fan of your writing, Twinkle. You know that. I love your writing. So one always loves to read what you write, actually.
Thank you. But why did you just suddenly throw that in just to make me happy?
No, because it's the truth. It's the truth. Because, there are some people, there are some writers. I don't know if you think that. There are some writers, when they read a book they really like, they have this thought, I wish I had written that, right? Or I wish I had written that way. I honestly never feel that. I think, no, I don't have the skills to do that. So I just want to kind of just admire that writing.
No, I mean, there are certain books you read and you want to bang your head on the wall and say, oh my God, I can't write like that. And Chiki, my editor, really taught me that. And she said, well, no one else can write like you either. We each have our own individual way of writing. And but I do another nasty thing. So when I read, Booker Prize novels and I say, oh my God, I can't write like that. Then I read some really bad best-selling novels and I'm like, I can do that in my sleep.
I am not going to ask you to name the bestseller.
I'm not naming them. I'm just saying.
Okay. Ramanand Garge has a question. Question to both. How do you prioritize your thoughts while developing any piece of writing or book? Interesting question. Do you have competing philosophies, competing thoughts, especially with non-fiction?
The most difficult part. This, I think, if you get this right, then the rest of it follows through. This is the primary foundation of what you write and why you write and how you write, and breaking that into a linear pattern is something that that is very daunting.
How do you do that then? How do you?
I don't know. It happens eventually, right? You keep scrambling, you keep going on, and it, like you said, you puck out it in your head so much, like dal. Finally, it has to change from one form to a cohesive form. That's what probably happens.
So do you just kind of just wait for it to form, or do you try and force it? Or what do you do? Especially with non-fiction, like this, like if you're not really sure what is the opinion that you're coming to, a subject that is complex, how do you force that thought in your mind?
So the way the brain works is very interesting. You have to, of course, get all the information possible, and it's in your head. And then while you're doing something completely different, you're not at your desk, you're walking your dog, you're having a shower. Showers are very important. It suddenly comes together, and there you have this moment. Oh my God, you have an epiphany! But actually, it's all the work you've done before.
Yeah, true. Okay, Ilika Chakravarti has a question. Have you ever had a writer's block, and how do you deal with it?
As a columnist, I haven't had a writer's block because a deadline is literally like, it's the biggest bulldozer against writer's block. When you know that you don't have a choice, things just happen. It's like that. You're pushed against the wall. With novels, yeah, I have had writer's blocks, and especially if I've tried going on a no carb diet. So I'm never doing that again. The minute you stop eating carbohydrates, your brain kind of freezes up. At least mine did. It was in a fog. That was the worst writer's block I've ever had. So I said, no, I'd rather eat that piece of bread and be 5 pounds heavier than have a writer's block. That's more important to me.
But I mean, look, if at times, and the problem of a deadline of a column, it's one of the reasons I have never agreed to a regular column, because you're just forced into something. Has it happened that there's that deadline pressure and you've been forced into it and you've written something out and it's got published, but you're not happy with it? Does that happen?
You're never truly happy with anything that is published. If you're, nothing. I mean, you have novels that you've taken years over and you're not happy with that either. But I really do think that this process of having deadlines is very valuable. Writers who are floundering, who feel I'll never finish my book, they've not really had this because of this training of Friday afternoon, I have to turn in my piece by hook or by crook. It really helps me in my other work as well. I love deadlines. I may be the only person saying this in the world, but I love deadlines.
I hate deadlines.
I
utterly hate them. Okay, fascinating. Sangeeta has another question again. Twinkle, would you do a writing workshop with some of our young British writers here? Can we invite you? Yeah, very good idea.
Please.
Your choice.
Will you please share my email with Sangeeta and then we can take it forward?
I shall do that. Sangeeta, you'll get an email soon with a CC. And I guess we'll make this the last question. How much time do we have? We have a bit more. Twinkle, you can take this one?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay. So Avipsa Das has a question to the both of you. How did you get into writing and what is the first thing that moved you towards it?
बोलिए.
अरे यार आप हमारे ऊपर ये अच्छा
Beauty before brains.
Okay, how did you get into writing? Okay, Immortals of Meluha was the first, not just the first piece of fiction, the first book, the first anything I've ever written. So I was always one of those left brain type guys. I graduated in mathematics, did an MBA in finance and marketing, banking for 14 years, as left brained as they come. So it was just a story idea just kind of grabbed my soul and I just had to write, and that's how it started. I was writing only for myself, and that's it. A short answer because I'm the interviewer here. So Twinkle, long answer from you.
I was writing a book when I was very young. It was about a girl who lives in an Ismaili Khoja family and she loses her mother. Her mother commits suicide and she lives with her grandparents. And that was my first experience. I don't know why I was drawn to that story, but I kept trying to write that story repeatedly in different ways as a novel. And finally, a version of that was Salam Noni Appa. So I tried to write that from an 18-year-old's perspective. I tried to write that from a 39-year-old's perspective. And finally, it was in my 40s that I actually wrote some version of it. Why do we write? We write because everything that's broken within, we use words to staple it together. I don't know if there's another way of putting it. And at least that's why I write.
What a beautiful way to put it, and what a beautiful way to end the program. Twinkle, seriously, you're a magician with words. What a beautiful way to put it. Everything that's broken together, we staple together with words. We're delighted to have you. Thank you so much for coming to the Nehru Centre platform.
You've been very, very kind to me, much kinder than I deserved, but thank you.
Oh, come on. And all of you, who are watching this program, if you haven't read Twinkle's book, shame on you guys. The 4 books that she has published till now are all displayed below. Check them out and read them, and you'll thoroughly enjoy them. Thank you so much, Twinkle. Thank you. This was an absolute stellar conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.